What's going on, Tamers? East here, and we're continuing our review of the BT23 Hacker Slumber set. And this time we're going to focus on the Hudie or Hudie cards, as I think they're known in English. And unlike our other reviews, I think that rather than tell you about the cards, in this one, I want to show you because I think it's much easier to understand. The deck is a little bit complicated. There's a couple moving pieces, but when you see how it all moves together, I think it'll blow your mind, as it did mine. Alongside that, I've also got some secret tech that I want to show off, so keep watching till the end to see that. Anyway, let's dive in. Alright, so Hudiemon. So the entire content of this deck revolves around the level 4 secret rare for the BT23 set in the Hudiemon itself. And what's cool about this card is whenever you play it or evolve into it, you can play down a cost 5 or lower CS trait Digimon. And that includes, from this set, a lot of cool options like the Seadramon, the Kabuterimon, the Golemon, and then more importantly, the Angemon and the Ankylomon. So you can see right off the bat, you've got lots of options to play from this card, and they all have different effects that include things like blocker, drawing, deletion. You've also got a little bit of piercing and DP buffs in there as well. And additionally, a lot of them do things on suspend, so whenever you suspend them. And how that's useful is that the Hudiemon actually has Alliance. So whenever it attacks, it can rest something else and then check for 2, and then whatever their DP addition is. In most cases, it's going to be 5,000. What's also cool about whenever you make an attack with Hudiemon is that if you decide to bounce one of your own CS trait Tamers back to your hand during the attack, you can use the on-player on-evolve effect again, meaning you can play a second cost 5 or lower Digimon. Something I neglected to mention a moment ago, but I think is more impactful now that you know the full breadth of this card's effects, is that whenever you do use the on-player on-evolve effect to play a Digimon, you can give one of your opponent's Digimon minus 3k for each Hudie trait Digimon you have on the board. So the first time you do this, it can be 6,000, and then the second time, whenever you make an attack, if you bounce a Tamer, it's suddenly 9,000. Yeah, so once your Hudiemon has made its attack and you've gotten your level 4s on the board, you can then utilize them to DNA Digivolve into a Shakkoumon. In this case, it'll look something like this. I think you can actually choose the order here because it's black, it's yellow, and then blue or black, so you can just choose whichever one you want first. And then once you get into your Shakkoumon, it's going to give your opponent's Digimon start a main phase they must attack, as well as de-Digivolve something on the board. And whenever it will be removed from the board in any way, you can take a level 4 from its sources and just play it out on the board. In this case, something like an Ankylomon might be useful because it has blocker. So now it's pretty easy to see like what the deck is aiming to do offensively. So you're probably wondering, well, how do I get there? One of the drawbacks of Hudiemon is its pretty high evolution cost. If you're taking a look here on screen, it's 5 costs from just a generic yellow or green level 3. But if you're coming from a CS trait Digimon, any CS trait Digimon, it'll be a 4 cost instead. There's ways to even reduce that further. And outside of the regular Digimon evolutions, if you happen to have 4 Hudie trait Tamers on the board, you can actually evolve one of those Hudie trait Tamers named Erika Mishima into Hudiemon directly for 3 cost. So that might be a really good time to talk about the Tamers more in depth. And in BT23, there were 4 really useful Hudie trait Tamers introduced in the Chitose Imai, the Keisuke Amasawa Tamer, as well as the Mishimas in Ryuji Mishima, and more importantly, Erika Mishima. From these, we're actually going to talk about the Keisuke and the Erika first, and then we'll talk about the Chitose and the Ryuji after that. Just because I think that these are the more important Tamers, and these 2 fellows are just really useful in a lot of different situations, especially the Ryuji. So first talking about the Keisuke Amasawa, he's going to be your 3 memory setter, alongside giving all of your Hudie trait Digimon plus 1,000 on all turns. Outside of that, well, he has a really interesting end of turn effect where you can rest him, pull back a Hudie trait Digimon on board to your hand, and then play down a CS Tamer for free. This is really useful in the case of cards that search that you can reuse again the following turns as a way to cycle that search over and over again, and then utilize them to get free Tamers out of it. Next up, the Erika Mishima Tamer. She's not going to give you a 3 memory start, but she is going to give you plus 1 memory if you do have a CS trait Digimon on the board. Additionally, she's got a similar end of turn effect where you can rest her, pull a Digimon on the board back to hand, and then play level 3 to the breeding area directly. Keep in mind that the breeding area has to be empty. If you've hatched an egg here, you're kind of shit out of luck. One last thing to note about the Erika Mishima Tamer is that she does have an inheritance effect, a proper inheritance effect. I mentioned before that if you have 4 or more Hudie trait Tamers on the board, the Hudiemon itself can evolve off of the Erika Mishima for 3 cost. And this is useful because the Erika Mishima gives the Hudiemon a second alliance, which means now you can rest 2 Digimon and give it Sec plus 2, also adding both their DPs to the Hudiemons itself. Also, throughout this entire video, I'm going to say probably Hudiemon or Hudiemon. It's because the Japanese pronunciation is Hudiemon, so forgive me in advance, thanks. And now I've absolved myself of all crime. Nice and easy. Next up are going to be our accent tamers, and these are going to be the Chitose Imai and the Ryuji Mishima. Let's start with the Chitose first, where start of main phase, if you have a CS Digimon, he's going to give you +1 memory, similar to the Erika Mishima. Also, whenever you play this guy, he's going to let you play a cost 5 or lower Hudie trait Digimon for free. Additionally, Chitose has one more effect that says whenever one of your Hudie trait Digimon suspend for whatever reason on both turns, whether it's through attack or through blocking or some effect, you can give one of the opponent's Digimon -3000 DP until the end of the turn. Yeah, it's not their turn, it's the turn. This has some cool uses, but I think what's even crazier is the use of the Ryuji Mishima. Alright, so let's talk about this guy for a second. First of all, his start of main phase, he gives you +1 memory if your opponent has a Digimon on board, so that's a nice easy memory buff requirement. Additionally, whenever you play this guy, you're going to give one of your Digimon DP minus immunity, reboot, and blocker. And that's really important, and we'll talk about why in a bit, so keep watching. Similar to the Chitose, whenever one of your Hudiemon Digimon would suspend for whatever reason, rather than give them -3000 DP, you can play a single color CS option card from your hand for free. And this seems mild at best, but when you take a look at the choices you have for option cards, you recognize how crazy this card is. Keep in mind, this effect is all turns, so either when you attack or if you block. So you can use this card offensively and defensively. So there are a total of 6 single color CS option cards at your disposal here for this Ryuji Mishima effect. The first one is going to be just a resource card in the Net Cafe Hudie. And this is simply on play, draw a card, and then on delay later on, you can, send this to the trash, and you can play a CS Tamer for free. It's rare, I think, that you'll ever play this card with Ryuji effect. I think you're simply just gonna like hard play it for its memory cost, because the other options, the more offensive or defensive versions, are way better. I'm gonna go over these really quickly, so I definitely implore you to read the cards in more detail if you're interested in them, because they all have really good effects. First one is Volcanopon, which is delete the lowest DP Digimon on the board. You've got Nano Machine Break, which gives Sec -1, and your opponent can't use on attack or on evolve effects for a turn. You've got Ice Archery, which prevents a Digimon or Tamer from suspending for a turn. You've got Comet Hammer, which is D-Digivolve 4. Keep in mind that when you have D-Digivolve X number, you can also choose to do less D-Digivolve. So for example, if you have D-Digivolve 4 and your opponent has like a really weak Digimon above a stronger Digimon, you can stop midway. Like you can just do D-Digivolve 2 if you want. And the final one here is going to be Crescent Reef. I think this is what this is also called in English, but this bottom decks an opponent's Digimon who is suspended. So immediately you have all these disruption effects at your disposal, either on attack or on block. What makes these cards even crazier is that once they're used once, their main effect says to keep them on the board. And they all have a delay effect, which is the exact same effect as the main effect, which is with the exception of the keep it on the board. So essentially, all these options I just mentioned can be used 2 times with 1 card. All of these effects bypass any Digimon effect immunity because they're simply just option cards. So things like Alan X now have to start really sweating whenever they make a swing and they leave something on your board. These all combo really nicely as well with the Shakkoumon we talked about before, where you imagine a situation where your Shakoumon's on board, the opponent, makes an attack, uses an attacking effect to get rid of your Shakkoumon. The Shakkoumon says, okay, well, when he's removed from the board, I can play down one of the level 4s in sources. You play down a Digimon that has blocker, and you block, and then suddenly you can rest the Ryuji and play any of these option cards. Pretty incredible. On a somewhat unrelated topic, these cards are all CS trait, and they have the caveat that says if you have a CS trait Digimon or Tamer on the board, you can ignore color requirements. This in Eaters seems terrifying. I know a lot of folks are probably out there thinking, man, 4 Tamers is a lot. I really got to worry about my ratios. And honestly, if I'm thinking about like which ones to prioritize over others, Ryuji seems pretty damn good. So now let's talk a little bit about the level 3s. First up is going to be the Gotsumon, who's like our trademark searcher for the Hudie cards. Search top 3, grab 1 Hudie card, and then grab 1 CS trait option or Tamer, which is pretty useful. We've also got the Tentomon, who can evolve at cost -1, which is super nice considering the expensive evolve cost of Hudiemon. And then you've also got the Betamon, who lets you trash a card from hand in order to pull back a CS trait card from the trash. There is one more who kind of like sits in a league of his own, and that is the Wormmon, who, again, pretty expensive evolve cost, but if it comes from a CS trait Digimon, it's 0. Start of main phase, if you have an Erika Mishima Tamer on the board, you can put her up under him and then evolve into Hudiemon for cost -2. Kind of nice 2 cost evolve here. Not to mention, you also get the double alliance from the Erika Mishima Tamer and the Hudiemon itself. Not to mention, similar to the Keisuke Tamer before, who gives all of your Hudie trait Digimon a +1000, the Wormmon Inheritance effect does the same thing. While we're on the subject of inheritance cards, let's quickly talk about some of the other level 3s in the Betamon, the Tentomon, and the Gotsumon, where they also, in inheritance, if you evolve over these guys into something else, when they attack, they can also play down a cost 5 Hudie trait card on the board for a turn. The one kicker about this inheritance effect is that whenever you trigger it, whenever you attack and you play down the Digimon played by this effect cannot evolve, and also at the end of your opponent's turn it is deleted. This essentially means these cards would be really useful for whatever their effects either on play might be, or their alternate effects that says whenever they're suspended you can do something. For in this case, the Golemon says you can delete a 4K Digimon or lower. Alright, so for the folks who've watched all the way to the end of the video, I mentioned at the very start that I actually have some secret tech that I want to show off, and if nothing else I've shown you so far is kind of like blowing your socks off, I think this one's actually really interesting. Actually, when I was doing some research looking over some of the cards, there was one card that I haven't talked about that is actually Hudie trait, and I didn't even realize it until like really going over like maybe like the 3rd or 4th time some of the cards, and that is Eater Bit. Now this seems kind of weird because you imagine this card would just slot into the Eater decks and just that would be it. But if you really read its effect super closely, you recognize this card can actually be pretty useful in the Hudiemon deck as well. So right off the bat, this card's inheritance effect, which utilizes the other Eater cards, completely unuseful in the deck. However, the other effects it has on the actual card itself are pretty crazy. First of all, on play, delete level 3 Digimon. Floodgates, evaporated. Super simple. Anything that's like any weenies left over on your board, this card will just take care of them outright. Additionally, the secondary effective, whenever one of your Eater or Hudie trait Digimon would be removed from the board, you can get rid of this card instead. You can trash this card and it remains on the board. So when you make this attack with your level 4 utilizing one of the level 3's inheritance effects, rather than play down one of the other, level 4 cards that are going to be deleted at the end of the turn and can't evolve, the Eater Bit seems like a great choice for its simple floodgate deletion, alongside its ability to give your Digimon on board an insurance policy. Considering they would also be deleted at the end of the turn, you can circumvent this death, you can cheat death essentially, by utilizing either the Erika or the Keisuke's effect at end of turn to trigger these first and then resolve them in such a way where you pull this back to hand, so the following turn you could just reuse it for the effect of the inheritance card. When you combine something like this with a Shakkoumon on the board, he recurses something, this keeps something on the board, I think it's really, really difficult to get around the Ryuji effect, where if you force something to block on your opponent's turn, you get a free option play. Really, really neat stuff. Who knew that reading cards would pay off? So for this video, I really just talked about like the Hudie trait cards in general, or the cards that function with the Hudiemon themselves from the set. But there are so many more CS trait cards, not only from BT23, but also BT22. And I think that there's a lot to dive into, lots of possible combinations, some really interesting stuff you can probably do, utilizing or mixing some of the cards in both sets. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where this deck goes in the near future. I'm sure a lot of you folks out there are also cooking up some crazy stuff. And so if you'd love to share some of your tech as well, feel free to put those in the comments below. I'll be reading for sure. Anyways, folks, I gotta go start to chisel down this stack of miserable cards into a real usable deck. I'm gonna get out of here. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.